For more on the class divide, let me turn to Reverend Jesse Jackson, president of the Rainbow Push Coalition. Reverend Jackson, great to have you here. Now,
to you, sir.
I want to ask you here, is this just a matter of disagreement? The GOP has this wonderful, brilliant plan for the poor and the middle class that we just can't understand, or is it that they just don't give a damn?
Well, there is a view of looking at the world from the mansion down, and those look at the world from the mange up. It's Christmas time. In the military, there's not shared sacrifice because there are no drafts, and so the poorest and the most threatened face the guns while the others benefit. I wish you would make that speech in Appalachia, where the coal miners supply the energy for our country, where Jessica Lynch, the first American soldier, female, taken captivity, who graduated from high school with good grades but couldn't afford to go to college and didn't have a job and went to the military as a kind of a backdoor draft. Where a coal miner dies every 6 hours a day from black lung disease, and they voted against health benefits for the coal miners, and yet voted for extending the budget for Karzai in Afghanistan. It's not right, and it's confusing.
You know, Reverend Jackson, people keep getting confused. I mean, they keep voting for these Republicans. They just won the House, right? And so I come to, why did that happen? And if those coal miners and all the people that you just mentioned knew what was really going on, they would never vote for them. So one of the answers I come up with...
It's mass deception.
Well, that's it, though. That's one of the answers I come up with is the rest of the media, to be honest with you. And it's because...
People must vote their interests and not their fears, you know. I mean, 59 million Americans, 59 million have no health insurance. Those numbers are rising. While the insurance companies' fees are rising, we bail out the banks, and yet while they're now wallowing in profits, they're not lending, and home foreclosures are on the rise. 49 million Americans are in poverty. They work every day but can't pay a house note, they can't pay rent, can't keep their children in college. 41 million are now on food stamps, and so there is this need to fight to rebuild our economy bottom up, not just top down, because you cannot depend upon those who trickle down to ever let it get down enough to let those boats stuck at the bottom.
But part of the problem, in my opinion, is the media calls everything even. So whether the Republicans actually push for tax cuts or they try to help the middle class, it doesn't really matter because the media is going to call it even anyway. Look, let me take that a little further.
It's kind of like ham and egg justice, you know. You come in the house and you smell ham and eggs, and it blends perfectly. It seems like it's one, but whenever there's a vote, the hog votes against it and the chicken votes for it. The chicken drops an egg, the hog drops a leg. So it looks even, but it's not even, and the fact is one sacrifices much more. In this case, those who work the hardest and in fact pay proportion the most taxes will spill the most blood in the military. In fact, now you have the tax cut for the wealthy in December, but you're going to have job cuts and health and education cuts come February and March, unfortunately.
You know, I already love this show because Jesse Jackson just said ham and eggs on air. I can't get enough of that. All right. So, Reverend, one more thing here. I want to put up a graphic here. Think Progress came up with this list of things they could cut if they actually wanted to share sacrifice. They could cut $100 billion in defense programs. Actually, the Bipartisan Deficit Commission agrees with that. $45 billion in subsidies to oil companies. $1 billion in tax expenditures for big agricultural firms. $2 billion in unnecessary stock ownership incentives for the rich, and the list goes on and on. So what's going on with the Democrats here? Why don't they take, as an example, the oil subsidy and say, we're going to stick to this?
Well, they should. The irony is you have billionaires who met trying to give money back, saying they had too much. The government trying to give it to them, and they're resisting it. So even the wealthy know that they've hit a point now of such exploitation and such wealth until it's not even helping them, not helping the nation. So I would hope that the president goes to the well, as it were, and speaks when he goes to the Congress in January. There'd be some renewed commitment to have a revived war on poverty. Because most poor people are not on welfare. They work every day. I went to a homeless shelter in San Francisco a month ago, and most of the women and children, they work every day but couldn't afford the rent. Some of them work every day whose husbands are in Iraq or Afghanistan. So it's time for a radical reorienting of our economy bottom up, because those at the very top are drowning in wealth. It's paper-driven, not even productivity-driven, and working poor find themselves faking 4 million more home foreclosures in the coming year.
Hey, look, I say that because if the Democrats don't stand up and fight against the oil subsidies instead of balancing the budget off the backs of the poor and the middle class, I don't know who's going to do it, because we know the Republicans aren't going to do it. Reverend Jackson, real quick, last question for you. Are you satisfied with what Obama's done so far, or do you think he's not fighting these guys enough, like with that tax cut deal?
I think he's raised the right questions, but he finds himself often alone once he raises the right question. I mean, he's a runner who needs blocking, who needs protection. When he raised the issue of bail out the banks to stop a global recession, it was the right thing to do. But it was not right for them not to reinvest in America. When he raised the issue of a health care plan for all Americans based upon health needs, not just based upon money, it was the right question. But he was demagogued as being some socialistic force that's un-American. I really think that we must keep driving him toward the moral center, not just the political center, but he has done, in my job, against great odds, a commendable job.
All right, Reverend Jesse Jackson, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.